TGR.
So I played Kenna Bridge of Spirits, and before we go any further, I want to say thank you to the PR people over at Thank you so much for sending us a copy. We do appreciate it. But unfortunately, I have a lot of things to say. But we should probably start with what I like, because there's not much. Kenna Bridge of Spirits is very clearly a game that is inspired by The Legend of Zelda. And a lot of old PS2 era platformers. And there's some Dark Souls in it too. The combat has a little bit of a Dark Souls feel. There's no stamina meter or anything like that. But from what I played, which was a couple of hours, right? I played maybe 3-4 hours, maybe. Combat was fine. It was okay. And that's the thing. You do a lot of it. The game is kind of divided into multiple sections. You have combat sections, you have puzzles that involve traversal of the environment, sometimes aligning things or shooting things in a certain order, stuff like that. And it's all really pretty, but it's all really basic. The game never once, in those couple of hours that I could get through, showed me much of that unique identity that I kind of like from these type of games, because it's an action adventure. And action adventure games, there's a lot of them. A lot. That's probably one of the most common game genres out there. So when you make a game like this, you kind of have to stand out. And what makes Kenna stand out, which I will say, it's not a game that doesn't stand out. What makes it stand out is its aesthetic, right? It's got that spiritual, fairy, lighty kind of mood. It's very pretty. It's very, very colorful. And it's definitely one of those games that will be remembered for how it looks more than anything else. So I do like that. I do like that in terms of a visual identity, it is definitely there. And Kenna's character design is good. Honestly, the designs of most of the creatures, the NPCs you meet, and the rod, which are super adorable, by the way, it's all very good. Honestly, it does have a very unique visual identity. But besides that, it just doesn't. I mean, if you look at the footage right here, I'm just climbing. I feel like I'm playing Uncharted or a million other games that have some sort of climbing element to them, which it's been done to death. Here we have more combat with a Kappa, which was a boss. This particular encounter wasn't too difficult. I think I did maybe once or twice. But the game actually is difficult. Enemies do hit hard, and that's another thing that I actually do like. A lot of these games, they can be really basic and boring, and this game definitely fell into that. But the combat difficulty and the challenge that came from the enemies and bosses was honestly a bit refreshing. Here I am trying to do like a little bit of a parry. It failed. But as you can see, combat is very simple. Very, very simple. And I know this is relatively early on. Maybe the combat got a little bit deeper as you played the game, but it wasn't, I really couldn't get through it. You do have to use your rot, which are, again, the little cute little guys that you capture around the world. You use them to heal, you use them to like stun enemies and bosses. They're actually a really big part of fighting bosses themselves. With them is the only way, for example, with this enemy, this boss enemy, that you can, that's the only way you can take it down. If you don't have your rot, you're not going to be able to take him down. So I did like that aspect as well. But things that I didn't like, honestly, it's like almost a majority of it. I really couldn't care less about the story. It's like you're like a I don't even know what to call you, a spirit summoner. It reminds me of Yuna from Final Fantasy X, where she like cleanses things, and that's kind of what you are. and it's fine. I don't know. There are certain games where the story can be very simple, and it can be powerful. It can be engaging. This one wasn't to me, and I'm sure I'm not. Maybe I'm in the minority. I haven't actually read a lot of the reviews. I'm not really sure, but it's just not something that captivated me. I tried. I genuinely did. I played pretty much the first main section of the game, and it wasn't what I wanted, you know? And I didn't try to have many expectations. It was a game that looked beautiful from the first, the first showings, and I wanted it to be something that really stood on its own. And I'm very disappointed that it wasn't. Like, if you look at these cinematics, they look beautiful. Ember Lab is known for the cinematics, right? So that was one thing that I knew wasn't going to look bad. And I do like the character designs. I think they're very unique. But it's missing that really crucial game identity that I really, really needed. Music is fine as well. Nothing to write home about. So really, it's just very disappointing. The game has potential. Maybe if they make a sequel, it'll be better. But if it's a sequel that follows a story, that means I have to play this game, and I don't want to. And sorry if I'm being really harsh on the game, but I'm also being honest. There are games that are going to connect with you, and there are games that won't. And this falls on the latter. It did not connect with me. It's not something that I wanted to continue playing. I mean, I dropped it and went back to Returnal, and that's a game that I definitely connected with, and I'm glad I got through all the way, because whatever, this isn't about Returnal, this is about Kenna, and I think that's the biggest issue this game has. It's, again, what I played was very forgettable. It's a game that I'm not going to be thinking about 2 years, 3 years later when I think about the PlayStation 5. It's a game that came and did its thing for a little bit, and that's kind of it. So, unfortunate. I wish it weren't this way. I wish the game would have kept me intrigued a lot longer, but I just couldn't do it. So, that's that. Unfortunately, I just didn't like Kenna Bridge of Spirits. Yeah.